What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. No fancy voiceovers today, no nothing. We're getting straight into working on our wonderful rear-wheel drive C18 DET Fwd. And
our
it's going to be a
rear-wheel drive Lancer build is taking shape very quickly.
Oi, what are you doing?
I'm doing a voiceover. Our viewers deserve high-level production value.
I wasn't going to do a fancy voiceover today. I was just...
Unfortunately, that's not your choice.
All right, do your voiceover thing. This guy, seriously.
Our rear-wheel drive Lancer build is taking shape very quickly. In the previous episodes, we built our custom frame rails, mounted our C18 DET engine, and started building our custom gearbox tunnel. We've still got a huge amount of work in front of us, and we're literally learning as we go, so let's get into it.
So we're kicking on with our gearbox tunnel before we install, or attempt to install, our MX5 subframe. So here it is here. I'll run you guys through that a little bit later. First things first, obviously, we've got to finish this gearbox tunnel. Before we can even do that, as you can see, we've got the car on the hoist now, which is so awesome. I thought we'd better build a gearbox mount. Because the car's now on the hoist, we're gonna have it going up and down. The gearbox needs to be supported by something, so we may as well make the mount. So off camera, I kind of abandoned you guys a little bit, and I went ahead and I welded our box section to the chassis. So these are our mounts here. It's just, as you can see, it's just nicely welded to the chassis. And when I say nicely, I mean very mediocrely welded to the chassis, because I'm not the best fabricator in the world, but it's there. I don't think they look too bad. So what we've done is we've drilled holes and we've got nuts welded inside here so that we can literally, just like the stock mount will bolt up, you just bolt your gearbox mount here. Obviously here's our gearbox. We've currently got it on the jack. I've also gone ahead and tacked up our gearbox mount. So what we've done is we've used the stock gearbox mount, which is here. We've cut the ends off it, we've welded some box tube onto it, and then we've got some plates here, obviously with the holes drilled through them. We've also plated off the end of our box tube, and as you can see here, I've angled it off a little bit, just to give this a little bit more support on either side, and we'll fill that, obviously, with MIG everything up super nicely. So this, it's a super basic setup, but basically this slides up in here, just like that. So fairly basic setup. I've decided not to go too crazy and fancy with it. Obviously the main point at the end of the day is to have it really strong so it doesn't break or anything like that. So what we'll do first is we're gonna go ahead, finish welding this up, install it, and that's our gearbox held up, and that way we know exactly where our gearbox is going to be all the time, and then we'll bring the car down and we'll get kicking on this gearbox tunnel. There we have it, a big piece of the puzzle ticked off the list. Look at that, gearbox cross member, all done. Pretty happy with the way it turned out, if I'm honest. Now we can bring the car down and see how we're going to attack the last of this gearbox tunnel. All right, so we are back down, and I just realized, I guess I just brushed over the fact that our engine and gearbox are officially mounted in the car for the first time. That's pretty mental. It's been a very short and sharp series so far. I've literally purchased everything we need to finish this car. I'm fully committed. We're going to get this thing done, and it's going to get done in a pretty nice amount of time. This is not going to be a huge, long, drawn-out build, which is cool. So I've got a full S13 front over here, full MX5 rear, purchased the diff, the shafts, we've got the turbo, we've got the manifold, we've got everything. This is going to be, I'm just so pumped on this build. But now we're on the ground, I'll show you guys what we're going to do to finish this gearbox tunnel. So in here, we've got the beginnings of our gearbox tunnel we did last time. Basically, we need to cover up, obviously, the existing holes with sheet metal, and I would quite like to have it looking pretty and have everything within the gearbox tunnel accessible, like this bolt right here, which we use to fill the gearbox with oil. So we're gonna go ahead, let's make some templates and let's cut some metal.
To create the template for our new tunnel, we're taking measurements and drawing the template onto cardboard. We then cut out the shapes, and piece by piece we see the puzzle start to come together. Once we have our completed template, we trace it onto sheet metal and cut it out. We then apply the bends using a vise. Sometimes you have to utilize whatever you have around you to get the job done. Then we slip our new tunnel into place and tack it into the car.
That took a lot longer than I would care to admit, but when you're doing shapes like that, especially with my brain, it's just something that you have to go over and over and over and make sure you get it right. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, but I'm actually pretty happy with the result. So here's what our gearbox tunnel is looking like now. Pretty sick. Like, I'm actually really quite happy with that. I'll show you the other side. It's quite like a complicated shape. It's not the same on both sides. As you can see, this side goes in because the clutch pedal's here and obviously has to clear, and then this side comes out. So, but like, look at that. I'm pretty darn stoked with that. It almost looks like I know what I'm doing. Almost. I've jumped back out of the car because it's so cramped in there, and I've been spending literally the last couple of hours like just cramped up trying to like get in little spaces and stuff like that. But the plan with the tunnel is to tack it, you know, all up, do a bunch of welds, and then seam seal it. It seems like that's the best way to do it. Instead of completely welding the whole thing up, it seems like that's not what the pros do. They kind of just, yeah, weld, and then seam seal the whole thing. That's how the cars come from factory as well when they're welded. So that is what we're going to do. I actually made a modification to this side of the tunnel as well, as you can see here. I just didn't like how far out it was sticking, so I cut it along the top, slid it in, and then re-welded it up. There's a little spot down here that we'll have to like cover a gap, but the body went in like a really weird shape there, so we're going to cut the body away there and weld in another plate. On the inside of the car, once we've finished welding everything on the outside, we'll go underneath the car and we will cut the excess metal away so that everything just meets up nicely, and then again we'll seam seal inside the car as well, which is pretty cool. I'm actually over the moon with that. It's such a daunting part of the project, and like, look at that shape. It just looks freaking awesome, so very proud of that one. We've run out of time tonight. We're coming straight back tomorrow. We're getting straight back into it, finish off the rear of the tunnel, and then getting into the nitty gritty, the real stuff, and that is cutting out that boot, which I'm low-key excited about because I love cutting stuff up. I'll see you guys in the morning. And we're back, day 2, round 3, something. I don't know, I'm getting sick. I can feel it in my body. Woke up with a sore throat, bit of a sniffles, sore body. I'm one of those people, as soon as I get sick, I turn into an absolute sook, so I'm keen to smash this out today, get this video up for you guys tomorrow, which is Sunday, and then be sick for a couple of days maybe, or I can get over it real quick, fingers frickin' crossed. But came back this morning, had another look at my gearbox tunnel, so stoked. Given the tools that we have to come up with that, I'm very happy. So now what we're going to do is the second half, or the back half of this gearbox tunnel, but it's very repetitive in terms of what I'll be doing, same as the front half, just at the back. So we're just going to do a little bit of YouTube magic here and get this over and done with, because I'm really keen to start getting this rear end done. So 3, 2, 1. Boom! Look at that. That is easily the hardest job I've ever done on this channel. Maybe it's equal with the frame rails actually at the front. That took an extreme amount of time, but I've got to say, I am so freaking proud of this, especially given the limited tools that we had. Still some tidying up to do. Obviously I've still got to spend hours at some point fully tack welding the whole thing and then sealing it all off, but like the whole main shape is there. That's it. That's our tunnel. And that is extremely awesome. I'm so happy with that result. I've never done anything like this before, and as I was doing it, the more I realized cars are just puzzles for adults, because that is just freaking nuts. But I am stoked. So that means we now get to move on to the rear subframe, and that is the part that I'm very excited for. I'm really hoping that we can knock it out, get it in today, so that I can have it in for the video for you guys. So fingers crossed if you're seeing this video right now and I get it in, then I did well. So before we go ahead and take out this rear end, our friend the laser light is back, and we need to mark out some center lines on the car so we know where our new stuff needs to go, right? This thing is absolute gold, so we'll turn it on. So here we have the laser. You got to put it down on the ground, on a level surface. We find the center line on the wheel, and you shuffle it around, and then we get the center line up here on our arch as well. And then we'll tape that off, and that way we know, boom, next time when we have our other subframe ready to kind of be welded in, we'll set it up in the place it's going to be welded, and we will once again put the center line on that and make sure that that is in the center of that hub, and then boom, we know that everything is where it needs to be. I literally go home after filming these videos and sleep so well because there's so much measuring involved. And if you were my teacher at school, in high school, you would know numbers were not my thing. So all this measuring, it's got my brain fried, but hey, it's the only way the Fwd is going to get built and actually point straight. So we'll mark center, and then we're going to rip the rear end out of this car.
We start off by marking centre on the wheel arch as well as a centre line through the middle of the car. Then it was time to remove all of the old rear end components to make way for our new rear wheel drive subframe.
No more front wheel drive, rear end, she's gone. How good is that? So now it's time to get chopping, fam. We're gonna chop everything out. So first things first, quickly, I'll whip these off, and then we'll bring the car down, and then I'm gonna chop this whole boot out. We're gonna get it done. Got a brand new blade on the saw. Let's freaking go. There she goes. She's out of the car. Look, it was kind of rusty. So, kind of rusty, definitely rusty. So happy to get rid of that piece of metal. Look at this. Holy crap. And it wasn't actually that hard, if I'm honest. So stoked. Now is probably a good time for me to give you guys an explanation on why we are using the MX5 rear end instead of another rear end, right? Why are we using MX5?
A rectangle, because it's easier.
It is, it's a rectangle, look at this. So it is symmetrical and it's a rectangle. So the S13 rear subframe, for example, is like...
The mounting points are not on the same plane, so you've got to do a lot more work to mount it, and this would be a lot easier because all you have to do is build a big metal rectangle and then literally just cut all your chassis wire, jack it up, and then just weld.
Yeah, weld it in place and then weld braces. So, and also the simplicity of it basically is why we're doing it. So 2 arms, that's
all
it.
the arms attached to the frame.
Yep.
So there's nothing, there's no traction arms over here in the way and stuff. So the coil, we're easy to get the coil over into where it needs to go.
That's right. So it's just a simple adjustments. This thing is never going to be like a grip monster. We're not going to drift this thing and want to, I don't think, take it in competition. We say that.
My car did 12 years of competition, my MX5.
Oh yeah, Woz used to drift in the MX5. Yeah.
Standard drive shafts.
Yep.
Standard diff.
Yep. So we have the NB diff that we're going to pick up this week in shafts and everything. They're the bigger ones. So
mine ran 220 kilowatts at the wheels, and I ran semis on it at one point on 15s.
And you never broke anything? Yeah, so we're in pretty good hands, but it's just, you can see it when you just look at the subframe. It's simple, and that's what we were going for. We don't want to make lives too hard for ourselves. Our boy Jimmy Oakes, he put the S13 rear end in his Civic. Man, shout out to him because it looked like a hell of a lot of work to get that done. Don't get me wrong, this is going to be a lot of work, but it's much simpler than what he would have dealt with the Nisonda. So that being said, we're going to center this here. We're going to roll it under the car and we're going to see start to get a glimpse of like what we have to cut out, because we're pretty much going to have to notch these rails here to fit our beautiful MX5 rear subframe. So yeah, let's see what it looks like under the car.
Just tap it in. Tap-a-roo.
Alright, so this is the really exciting part of the build. We have a subframe inside or underneath the car for the first time, and we get the first look at how it's all going to come together. Now, as you remember, we've marked our center line straight down the center, and also our line for where we want this hub to be sitting when the wheel, where it needs to rest with the car sitting on the ground. So we know where we want kind of the subframe to be. So the angle of the arms and the geometry of the rear end is nice and flat. That way, because usually, obviously, when you have a car from factory and you lower it, the arms will go like this, right? Whereas we have the opportunity now to have the arms laying flat when it's low. That means that's the best possible geometry for this car, especially when you're drifting as well, to get maximum grip. And even though we're going to be, not thrashing this car on the track, like I said, we're still going to be, we want some performance out of it. So here we can see we need to notch our frame rails. This needs to come all the way up here, right? On both sides. So what I'm going to do is cut the rails out completely, exactly with the measurement front to back of the subframe, right? And then we're going to start building our box frame that's going to essentially weld into the car. It's much easier to cut the whole rail out as opposed to cutting little bits out and trying to fit it in, because we could just notch it a little bit in the side, fit the subframe in and still have our stock rail, but it's just much easier, yeah, to get rid of the whole thing and then re-box it in ourselves and reinforce everything. That way we know we have clearance for the arms, because these arms are going to travel up and down. So obviously we don't want this arm hitting here, so if we just clear it all out completely, that way we know we're going to be all good. Now for the suspension for this build, our good friends Max Speeding Rods jumped on board once again, and they sent us their T6 coilovers. This is their upgraded coilover, right? So I went ahead and asked them to send us out S13 coilovers because look at them, they're so freaking good looking. Because this has an S13 front in it, right? So we know the fronts are gonna fit. And I kind of took a risk, but I thought, hey, the rears look like they'll fit our MX5 rear end as well. And sure enough, this is a rear here, and this will basically fit down the bottom into our MX5 subframe with just a little bit of cutting on the outer bush. It'll slip straight in and bolt up, and then up the top here, hopefully, once we've got the subframe in the right position, we're going to modify the top hat to accept our S13 coilover. We may have to do a little bit of massaging in the body here to make sure the coilover doesn't hit, but hopefully, yeah, it looks like the coilover may just kind of work, which is amazing. It's a body adjustable coilover, so we have plenty of height adjustment. They're also damper adjustable, and fun fact, we run these exact coilovers in my competition E36 drift car. This is a perfect opportunity for me to give you guys a review on how I've been finding these coilovers since we've put them in. I've done 3 events so far, and honestly, so far so good. I actually was going to throw a set of BC coilovers in this, but I'm really happy with how these are performing so far. I've had no issues whatsoever. I have fantastic grip in the rear, and they feel great in the front. Currently, I'm running them at full hard in the front, and then I dial in the rear, depending on how much grip I want to run in the rear. If I want more grip, I'll soften them up. But at the moment, I'm running them literally right in the middle of the dampener range. Super stoked on these new coilovers that Max Speeding Rods have started to produce. Much higher quality. They seem to be a lot better, and fun fact, they're sending us out their newer, even higher spec model, the T7 for the E36, so we'll be throwing those in and testing those very soon as well. With discount code in the description below. Grab yourself 10% off everything on the Max Speeding Rods website. A bunch of stuff, turbos on there as well, and have confidence knowing that I approve of these new Max Speeding Rods coilovers, and they're going to be in our new Fwd, which is sick. Alright, so car is in the air, okay? This is where the hard part starts. So I've got the laser set up down here, and the laser is pointing, boom, directly center in our wheel arch, right the way across. It's perfect, both sides, okay? So that is our center line. And then we get this down here, which is our rectangle, and then we have to measure the total length, halve that, and that's obviously where the distance that we need to go either side of the center line, up and in. And we know that this thing will be bang on this way, front to back center, right? And then of course we need to center it this way as well. So it's a massive mindfuck, but it's just, you just gotta measure a million times. Just make sure that you get it right. Also, look at this. It looks so crazy that the Lancer looks like this now. Like, Fwd has come a long way in a short period of time. All right, enough chit chat, let's get cutting. Yeah. That fucking sucked. Holy crap. That was honestly so difficult. Oh my god. Back and forth with the grinder and the reciprocating saw over and over and over. Frame rails ain't no joke, man. That was just so difficult, but look at that. Ooh, we're all cut up, and that means we can now slip our subframe back under, lower the car down, and see if we made enough of a cut. Whew, tucked. Oh, good. So we're up in the slot, and it seems to be fairly bang on, which is really nice. So, I mean, most excitingly, the MX-5 rear subframe and arms fit super well. Like, look at all the clamps we've got for the arms to move up and down. It's not going to be an issue whatsoever. We'll be able to get the car nice and low. All right, I'm G'd up, got the car in the air. I'm going to go ahead. We've got metal here. I'm going to make our rectangle, just tack it up, and I want to kind of hold it up there and see like where we're going to go from here. You just got to keep moving forward slowly, and I wasn't sure exactly where to go for the next steps, so that's what we're going to do. Hopefully it's the right thing to do.
We're on the home straight now as we measure and cut our new frame rails. I actually made a mistake here, but luckily I over measured, so it was easily fixed. I then notched out the new rails to suit the body and welded in the final bar. We then used the gearbox jack to lift the frame into place, triple checking our measurements before tacking the new rails in place for the first time.
Alright, so here's our first look at our frame rails in the car. My golly gosh. Once again, That was insanely tricky. Please be aware, by the way, that this is in its most basic form at the moment. It's just tacked in, it's just the frame of the frame rails. We've still got so much left to do in regards to making this thing strong again after cutting out all of the other stock frame rails, of course. We're going to have to plate and add a bunch of stuff to make sure that this thing is just as strong, if not stronger, than it was before. But nonetheless, like, that is a monumental effort. Honestly, I wanted to go home like 3 or 4 hours ago. I feel like death. I'm coming down with something, but I really wanted to push through and get this done for you guys. I don't really like to do videos that don't have like a lot of good progress in them. It's just something in me. I've never been able to do that. So I hope you guys appreciate the effort and time that have gone into this. If you do, please feel free to share these videos with a friend, someone that you think may be interested in this build. I'd love to get the word out and spread it worldwide. This car's come such a long way in such a short amount of time. And of course, now that that frame is tacked in, I'm pretty sure it's center and all that, but it's so late right now that like you just get a little bit delirious, and like I'll come back and check my work tomorrow. It's only tacked in, so I would be able to change it if I need to. I did the laser aligner, I've done everything right, I think. I'll get Woz to double check my work tomorrow and just make sure that we are where we want to be. Of course, then we'll dummy fit the subframe and make sure that the diff is going to be at the right height and all that jazz. I'm fairly 99% sure that I've done it right. I mean, look at it in there. It looks nice and flat. Man, we pushed hard tonight. We got so much done. That is definitely where we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna go get some Uber Eats. I'm gonna crash on the couch, smash it into my face, probably watch some How I Met Your Mother. Thank you as always for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy the content as much as I enjoy making it. If you do and you aren't subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'm gonna go die now. Cheers. Peace. Bye.